Hello and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten and with me is Brandon Beck from Crunch Wears No Pants. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, like we just said right before we fired up the mics here, the Wolves are cooking 4 in a row. We'll talk about how some of those games have gone. But yeah, happy to be here.
It's like, well, what are they cooking? Are we? It can't be filet mignon, is it? I mean, it's like a half decent pot of hamburger helper at this point.
Yeah, I mean, decent comp, like, but you know, they can only cook with the ingredients they're given, and right now they're being given a lot of really, really horrible teams to cook against.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things, and we'll deep dive into it, but it's just like, we both do content based on this team, and it's like, so we're already like, we don't want to go into it saying, well, this means nothing, that means nothing, because then we have nothing to talk about. And I guess your show is certainly more apt to talk about nothing than like mine. You guys will deal with the nothingness pretty well, but it's also just like, I don't know. I mean, how much can we really take away from these past two games in New Orleans? They win them both. Last night's is a lot less, I would say, frustrating than the overtime game, in the sense of, I think it'd be interesting if you flip, if the fourth quarter comes in the first quarter. I don't think there's any, like, they just go up by 15 or whatever early in the game and they cruise to a 9-point win. But it's like, I guess it's like, is it a bad sign that they could barely beat the Pelicans on back-to-back games?
Yeah, I don't know. So I feel like this has been a big talking point over this 2-game Pelicans streak, like on a lot of the pods and on Twitter, is just kind of the Wolves are playing down to their opponents again thing. And I will acknowledge that they really, really played with fire in this 2-game Pelicans series. Like, they very well could have, probably should have lost that first one if the Pelicans didn't commit like a horrible turnover with 35 seconds left up 4. They would have just won that one going away. Like you said, the game last night was close, but never really felt like they were going to lose it. The Ant foul trouble made stuff weird. But all that being said, like, all the conversation around them playing down to their opponents rings a little hollow to me when you just kind of look at the straight up facts that they're 12-1 against sub 500 teams this year. So, and I think sometimes because we are so locked in on the Timberwolves and we are watching every Timberwolves game, and we watch some of the league at large, but we don't watch every game for every other team. And more often than not, when we are watching games with other teams, we're probably not watching games that the Pelicans are involved in or games that the Wizards are involved in. And I think we would find that teams aren't just beating these teams by 30 every night. And you're not just going out in the first quarter and winning the first quarter by 20 points and then sleepwalking through the rest of the game. Like, the fact of the matter is they are getting the job done in these games. And that's really all that matters, because if they're winning these games against these sub 500 teams, I don't really care how this team stacks up against the Pelicans, because when the games actually start mattering, they're not going to be playing the Pelicans. They're not going to be playing the Wizards. They're not going to be playing the Hornets. And yeah, it's dangerous, and they're going to lose some games at some point to some of these teams. But I just don't think it is like a capital P problem the way that we kind of have made it out. Like, I think it's just because we're kind of just bored by playing these teams. Like,
yeah, I tend to agree. I almost 100% agree. I guess, like, the one caveat is there is a team that does what you're talking about in terms of just like wiping the floor with any bad teams, and that team is 21-1 or whatever, and they just won the title. And I get, like, I don't think that makes it, like, we don't have to compare the Wolves to the Thunder at every single stop. And the Thunder are the outlier. I mean, they won the title and they're favorites to do it again. And they're, especially in the regular season, they're just a juggernaut. And maybe in the playoffs too, probably in the playoffs too. And they are, I mean, if they want to, they're going to win 70 games this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like, I mean, they're trying to win a title, right? The Wolves are, so it is fair in a certain sense to stack them against the best team in the league. But I also just think like this is not the area to. If you want to talk about like the turnovers against good teams or the clutch time offense against good, like that's like where like go watch the last couple minutes of the Oklahoma City game they played around Thanksgiving. Like that would be like this stuff to compare OKC against, not necessarily of did they beat the Pelicans by 9 or 15.
Yeah, and I mean I think it's fine to like use the Pelicans as not the Pelicans, the Thunder as like your bar. That is what you're aspiring to, right? Everyone, that's who you have to beat if you want to achieve your ultimate goal. But also, I think it's just like fair to say like they are not as good as the Thunder. Nobody is as good as the Thunder. So if the only way you're going to be satisfied is for them to be doing what the Thunder are doing, a thing that basically no other team ever has done, like the 16 Warriors, maybe not 16. What year did they win 72 games? Was that 16?
15, 16.
15, 16, yeah. Like sure, if that's the only way for you to be satisfied, like I have bad news for you. You are not going to be satisfied. They are not as good of an overall team as the Thunder. That doesn't mean they can't beat the Thunder in the playoffs. That doesn't mean the Thunder couldn't get eliminated earlier. That doesn't mean someone couldn't get hurt. Like there's a lot of ways that can play out, but they aren't going to win as many games as the Thunder. They aren't going to have as good of a net rating this season as the Thunder. It's not going to be close because the Thunder are way better than them. And I just don't think like if that's going to make you mad, you're going to need to get a different hobby.
And I think there is like this existential crisis when you look at Oklahoma City I think the goal for this next 5, 6, 7 years, this Anthony Edwards Wolves era is like just win a title. I like obviously if you get that and you can try to win a second, whatever, that's great. But like you're trying to win a title, and I think it's fair to like there's like an existential question of like how do we do that? How do they beat this OKC team? I think that's fair, and we can like talk about that. But like what I don't think is appropriate is using these games against terrible teams and their quote unquote underperformance in them as like a benchmark of judging that. I would say, like you said, it's not a capital P problem. I 100% agree. It's like a lowercase p, and let's turn the font down to like 5-point problem. Like it is a problem, and it cost them the Sacramento game. And obviously Sacramento's not a losing team, but I think like their collapse on the stretch of that game falls under the same like general umbrella of like quote unquote unseriousness or whatever. So like it cost them 2 games, and then like and it's frustrating that they like didn't respond to that. Like it's more of the same. I just kind of the Pelicans are just so bad. It's not even like I don't think there's like any there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and that's like you started this whole thing is like we're here creating content. Like what we're doing is we are talking about the last 2 Timberwolves games. So we have to try to find meaning in these things, or like what we're doing doesn't matter, but it really doesn't matter if we don't think the games matter. But I just don't think there's ever going to be that much to draw from in a 2-game series against the worst team in the NBA that they won both games in. Like, yeah, sure. They were probably operating at about 60%. They needed 59% to win those games, and they played at 60. So like, okay, move on. Never think about them again. Like, look forward to the next one.
Yeah, and it's like, I think if this were like their next 2 games against the Clippers and Suns, 2 games that you'd ideally like, they'll be favored by a fairly healthy margin. LA on the second night of a back-to-back, ejecting franchise legends from the locker room. Like it, but at least they're like an actual basketball team. I do not think the Clippers will finish like on they won 6 of 22 games. I don't think they'll finish on that pace. I don't think
the Clippers are an actual basketball team. I think they're horrible.
But like, you think they're 6-16 horrible?
I think they're one of the worst teams in the West. Like, because, well, for one thing too, I said this like not that long ago. The other thing we have to acknowledge with the Clippers is a team made up of like exclusively 37-year-olds. This is the healthiest they are ever going to be this season. Like as the season goes on, they're going to get more injured. They're going to start trading away guys. Like, I think that this team could, I think they could finish like 14th in the West. Like, I just think they're really, really bad.
Yeah, I guess I just disagree only because the teams above them, the direct 2 or 3 teams above them in the standings have incentive to lose, and the Clippers have incentive to win. And sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, the Clippers have incentive to win right now.
I get it.
6-30.
I get it. I just think Dallas and Utah are going to tank out. Now I'm looking at the standings, like they probably are worse than Memphis and Portland, and so. Yeah, okay, they pass up Utah and Dallas. Have fun in 11th. Like, what does that even...
Utah can really score. Utah they can't guard anybody.
Is their best player going to be on their team in March? That would be my question.
Utah never trades they always say they're going to trade their guys, and then they never do. That was like Colin Sexton.
Notable guys that they traded.
Well, I'm talking about like the post Rudy Gobert era. But like the Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, like those guys were on the block for 4 years, and then finally they were just like, I guess we just got to release them because no one wants them.
Although, in the vein of giving you shit, you just listed players that are not on their team because they traded them.
Well, they released Jordan Clarkson, didn't they?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they traded Colin Sexton for like a 2nd-round pick after like holding out for years. Mm-hmm. That was the point.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't know what Utah's doing. Obviously, like they're trying to lose and they're just not good at it, and so like. Just stop. Like, either, like, Utah, now we're just on tangents, which is fine. But, like, Utah, either trade Markkanen or try to be half decent. Like, stop, whatever this is. Like, just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but it's the Danny Ainge thing.
Yeah, and have fun with, in Oklahoma City, I kind of, like, relates to them a little bit, too. Although they have the Clippers pick, so maybe it doesn't relate. But, like, I kind of think, like, having all those picks... Like, there's gigantic diminishing returns about having 1,000 picks. Like, having 100 picks compared to 10 doesn't give you 10 times the value. Like, you have to do... Like, look at the Brooklyn Nets, who have, like, 5 first-round picks, and, like, seemingly none of them have worked out. Like, I don't know. I just think, like, this treasure trove of picks kind of, like, the value of that...
And they're and the picks are... like, the Clippers one, obviously, is turning into a really good one. Like, the one the Pelicans traded to the Hawks, and it is going to end up being a really good one. But for the most part, these picks like never actually end up being all that valuable, like as themselves. Like they are valuable currency for transactions. And I think that's kind of, we loop this back to the Timberwolves where like changing up the roster becomes tricky for the Timberwolves because they don't have that currency to like make up ground for value in trades. They're really asset poor on the pick side. That is way more the value of picks than it is like just hoarding them and continuing to draft players, because like filling your team with like 15th and 17th overall picks is just not really like this dream of like a young group that grows together that was all drafted together is very rarely how it actually plays out.
Exactly. I mean, look at like the Utah. What is the best asset Utah got in the Rudy Gobert trade? Like individual asset. It's Walker Kessler, which technically was not a draft pick because it was on the draft night trade. And like, if you include the Donovan Mitchell trade, like Markkanen is like the thing they got back. And let's see if they get good. I mean, obviously if they were half decent, like they would be like one of the first teams you talk about with like the honest stuff. But, yeah, I agree with you. It's not like I don't even know who the Utah has drafted with the 2 Rudy picks.
One of them was Keontae George, who's having a decent year, but like
solid player.
Sold, like gave away one of the best players in your franchise's history, so you could have Keontae George making a bunch of shots on a terrible team.
Best big man in the history of your team, because we're not including the weirdo from the 90s. All right, I have a weird kind of rant. And I want to run it by you first to make sure like I'm not just pulling stuff out. There's been a lot of talk about like the Wolves' identity, and I'm not even talking about like any specific media member or content person. But like, have you heard like the Wolves don't have an identity? They need to find an identity. Is that something like you've heard?
Oh yeah, I mean we talk about this. We talk about this every year. Like, what is the Wolves' identity? Are they a defensive team or an offensive team? Like they're a basketball team.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. And again, it's not pointing out any specific person. I think identity has turned into this buzzword that means nothing. It's something to me, I'm trying to explain this well enough, that gets applied retroactively to good teams. And maybe there's exceptions to that, but like, I feel like, what is Oklahoma City's identity? That they win 21 out of 22 games. That's their identity. And obviously, they have a good defense. They have the best guard in the NBA. My question is, like, do the Wolves need to find an identity? And I kind of don't know what that means. They just need to play better. I mean, they're 14-8. They're 52 win pace. That's great. The schedule will get slightly harder, obviously, than it has. Are you with me that, like, identity? It feels like it's like a buzzword similar to basketball IQ, where sometimes people use basketball IQ as just a stand-in for calling the players dumb.
They use basketball IQ. Basketball IQ is a great way to describe why players who are not athletic are good.
That's true. That's also true to that's accurate. Do you agree? Do you kind of agree with me? Like, identity, they just need to, like, do they need a defensive identity? No, they just need to give a shit sometimes.
I mean, so like, I think I'm a little, I'll meet you halfway here. Like, I do think, like, an identity, like, if we look around the league at the good teams, I do think you can kind of, like, to me, an identity is like, what are you trying to enforce on the game? Like, before the game starts, what is the thing, like, you are bringing to the table that you are trying to do? Like, the Houston Rockets, their identity to me is, like, they are going in games and they want to just, like, maul the shit out of you on the glass. Like, they are bigger than you, they are stronger than you, and they are going to make hell on you. And if they miss a shot, they're going to try their damnedest to get the ball back and make a shot. Like, so that is, like, that team's identity. Like, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, great, but, like, their identity is they are going to, like, play super, super physical at the point of attack. And they are going to, like, they're basically playing a bet that the referees are not going to call a foul on every play. And they're going to be really, really handsy until you get into a shot motion. Like, they're really good at that stuff. Like, that is their identity. The Denver Nuggets identity is quite simply just, like, Nikola Jokic. Like, simply by having Nikola Jokic, like, they are going to just, like, let him generate everything and play through him. So, like, I do think, like, good teams have an identity. But I don't think like this Timberwolves team, like, to your point, is playing down to these opponents because they don't have an identity. I think what they thought their identity was going to be, what their identity has been in the Rudy Gobert era, has been, like, a really, really, like, technically sound, kind of choke you out defensive team that's going to be better with Rudy on the floor than they are with Rudy off the floor. And I think that's true again this year, but I think that the defense has really fallen off to a level. Like, I don't think that they can hang their hat on defense anymore. But I mean, they do have a lot of things that they do well. And I guess if I were saying, like, what is their identity is that they have two of the best isolation players in the NBA, and they're playing through those guys. Now, that calls into question, like, is that a contributing factor to why they're struggling so much against good teams? Because, like, good teams are less likely to have to double Julius Randle. And if you don't have to double Julius Randle, like, you can take him out of the game a lot easier. Like, good teams have guys who are better at guarding Anthony Edwards. Good teams don't have as many, like, breakdowns in pick and roll. So good teams have an easier time shutting off Rudy Gobert's water on offense. Like, that to me is more of a question, but, like, I don't think that the Timberwolves are just, like, out there going, like, starting the game going, like, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah, for sure. And I just kind of wonder, like, I think it's a good point that they probably need to find some sort of, like, I'll rephrase it. If they end up meeting whatever goals they want to get, or they end up having a successful season, whatever that is, an identity will have to emerge. Will have had to emerge. Like, that will come naturally. But I don't think, my thing, like, if I was talking with coaches or whatever, I wouldn't say, like, you guys need to find an identity. That should be the people that work for the team's, like, supposed goal. I think, like, that identity is something that comes, like, retroactively. And then on top of that, the Wolves are kind of a team that are good at most or all things, but not like bottoming out in anything. Like right now, they're 7th in offense and 11th in defense. I probably wouldn't expect either side of the ball to get into the top 5. The offense probably has the best shot, but I think my guess is if they do get in top 5 in offense, the defense will probably fall or stay outside the top 10.
And I think that's like the tricky part, and maybe where the source of the like identity conundrum comes in for the Wolves, is that they have like, maybe they don't have they have two-way players, but they have a lot of one-way lineups. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
yep.
Like
it's just whether Rudy's on the court or not. Basically,
they're top 10 on those two sides of the ball, but they're never top 10 on two sides of the ball at any given moment.
Yeah.
Like when Rudy Gobert is on the floor, they're a really, really good defense, but they're not a very good offense. When Rudy Gobert is off the floor, they're a really good offense. They're not a very good defense. And so that does raise a question, like just as a viewer, like what is this team's identity? Like, because at any given moment they could be this like fast-paced 3-point shooting team, or they could be this like stodgy, choke you out, drop coverage defensive team. So I don't know. That makes it tricky, because like I could, like you said, if they're going to get into the top 5 on offense, that probably means that they leaned into those lineups that really can't guard, and that's going to have a negative impact on the defense just because of the nature of the players. Like the things that make them a good offense when Rudy is off the floor is Nas and Julius Randle, which are the exact things that make them a bad defense when Rudy is off the floor. So I don't know. If I had to say like what I think the most likely thing, if we had to pick an identity for the Timberwolves, I think the thing that they are the best at relative to the rest of the league is I think that they are a really good 3-point shooting team. I think they have a lot of really good high volume 3-point shooters, like just between Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, and Naz Reid. And then I think they have some good low volume 3-point shooters too. Mike Conley, as bad as he looked these last 2 games, is still shooting like close to 40%. And still feels like it's going in when he shoots it. Jaylen Clark is proving to be like a really good 3-point shooter when he is open. Jaden McDaniels has elevated to that level. Julius Randle comes and goes, but I mean, like, I think they have the capability to be like a really, really high level 3-point shooting team. However, I think that's also the type of thing that can lead to volatility against bad teams, because part of the way that you really, really like dominate against bad teams, which once again, I don't know why we need to harp on this because they are 12-1 against the bad teams, but part of the way that you dominate against bad teams is by just like hammering like defense, offensive glass, like get to the lane, draw fouls. Like those are 3 things that are just like easy, repeatable, and very rarely like come and go with how well or not well you are playing. A bad shooting night, if you're just like a high volume 3-point shooting team, you can lose to anybody. And quite frankly, I think that's more what happened last night than anything else, is that they just kind of like had a really bad shooting night for the first 3 quarters. And that sparked a lot of the transition stuff too, on like long rebounds and things. So I don't know. I am also annoyed by the idea that they need to like establish some sort of identity, because they probably need to change the roster if they want to be like consistently doing the same things with every lineup that they put out there.
Yeah, it's very true. So I think to your point, I was looking through like to what I said. They're around league average in almost every stat. Assist ratio 13th, offensive rebounding rate 15th, defensive rebounding rate 12th, turnover percentage 17th. So it's one of the below average stats, but not crazy. Pace, they are 14th. So all of those are between 12th and 17th. The one stat that they are top 5 is effective shooting percentage at 4th, and then true shooting percentage, which is largely the same number. They are 5th. So like that is their strength, is if they get a shot up, it's probably going in. How like bankable is that night to night? Like you mentioned, is less so. But yeah, I just think I do wonder, and I guess it'll be a test, or even like last year it tested out pretty well. It's like, if you're a team that isn't amazing in one category, assists, turnovers, whatever, if you're not amazing in one category, does that make you worse, so they're seventh in net rating. If there's a team that's seventh in net rating, like they were 2 years ago, where they're first in offense and like I think they finished 17th in, or excuse me, first in defense, they finished 17th in offense. Like, is that? I would kind of argue like I'm more how good the Wolves are. If you just go to the NBA page and go sort by net rating, they're seventh. I think that kind of just that gets you like 90% of the way there of figuring it out.
Yeah, and I think that they are like pretty close standings wise to where they are going to be. Like I've talked about this on our show a few times. Like I thought that they would be a little bit better than they've been. Like I definitely thought that it was going to be like OKC tier on their own. And then I really thought like that the Wolves were more in the tier of Houston and Denver. From what I've seen so far, I think those teams have separated themselves a little bit. But I don't think that the Wolves have cratered themselves into the play-in range. I still think that they could absolutely finish in the top 4. I would be shocked if they finished outside of the top 6. Like I look at the teams in the play-in right now, and I just don't think any of them are good enough to pass the Wolves, unless like Anthony Edwards got hurt or something like that. Like there is obviously things that could happen that could change that, but on like a pure talent basis, I would just be very surprised if the Wolves finished outside of the top 6. And like quite frankly, we've seen over the last 2 years now, like I think unless they were to run into if they were to fall into the play-in and finish 8th or something, I think that whoever they play in the first round of the playoffs, they're going to have a chance against. And I think that's kind of all we can really hope for. Like, because like I said at the beginning of this, like, I don't think we should be, the goal is to win a championship, but I don't think we should be looking at this team and saying if they don't win a championship, it's an abject disaster. They're not the best team. Could things break right? And could they do it? Sure. We've seen over the last 2 years, like, could they get into the Western Conference Finals? Like, that would make a perfect sense to me. But like, I don't know. I'm just not viewing this season as like, we gotta go out and win the whole thing this year. And it's a disaster that they're not number 1, because I just don't think that's what this roster says they should be.
Yeah. And one thing I've just looked at the standings. If you could end the NBA season right now with the current playoff standings, I would take that in a heartbeat. I don't think it's going to get better than 4 San Antonio, 5 Denver Nuggets, like in terms of, and 6 Timberwolves. Like obviously you like home court advantage in the first round, but having Oklahoma City on the other side of the bracket, having OKC and Denver on the other side of the bracket would be as good as it's going to get. And even with that, their path to the West Finals would be at Houston Rockets, at Lakers, both of which were in their little bracket last year, but are much, much better teams than they were a year ago. It's just going to be, even if you thought they were like 50-50 in every single matchup, you'd have a 12.5% chance of making the finals. And they're going to be 40% on the road against like the Rockets, and they're going to be far less than that against it. I think that's like a big thing is like, if your enjoyment of the season is going to be based on them getting back to the West Finals, like I think we need to temper our expectations, not even because they're worse than last year. I still kind of think they're going to be better than last year, even just by a slight degree, but just because like the conferences are so unbelievably unbalanced that where you finish in the playoff race just isn't going to be a fair representation of where your franchise is. If the Wolves were in the Eastern Conference, and even if you just sub them out with the Wizards, I would feel so unbelievably great about the Wolves' chances to make the finals. There isn't a team in the East that I think is head and shoulders above, or even just like straight up better than the Wolves. But in the West, there's like half a dozen teams that at the very least, like the top 5 in the West right now would all be just monster playoff matchups. And I think what's frustrating about like this first start of the season, I think it's not over yet, but like they may have blown their chance to be the 2nd seed, which is still in play. But go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, they're 2.5 games out of the 2nd seed. Like,
no, for sure. My more point is like the team that you might be chasing is LA. You're already down a tiebreaker there. And I think to get there, like the Phoenix and Sacramento games there's a good chance you look back and go, that's tough. But I mean, the Lakers,
like those Phoenix and Sacramento games, like don't get me wrong, those were horrible, terrible collapses. Those are games that they should win. I think the fact that they happened consecutively inflates, like, I think those games happen to every team every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a couple of those games happen to every team every year. I think the fact that they happened right in a row when everyone was kind of doubting, like, could this team beat an above 500 team, really, really, like, blew out of proportion, like, the level of disaster that those games were. Like, they were horrible collapses. But, there's a few teams, I'm blanking on examples right now. I mean,
Denver just lost to Dallas. Houston just lost to Utah.
Yeah, I mean, the 76ers, they won last night, but they almost lost to the Golden State Warriors after winning the first quarter 33-10 last night. Like, they needed a shot with less than 1 second left to win that game. So, like, these games, like, these weird like fluky games happen, and at some point this season the Wolves are going to win a couple weird fluky games like that, and it's going to balance out. Like, I just don't think we should be going as far as saying like that they've blown anything or anything like that. Like I said, I just still think that they're in a decent spot. I think they're probably going to finish somewhere between 3rd and 6th, and then they'll play someone in the playoffs who I think they're going to have a chance against.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the clear goal is like Lakers, Rockets, Spurs, Nuggets, Wolves. I would probably all put on the same. No, that's not true. Some of those teams are probably a step above the Wolves, but a lot of those teams, regular season wise, are all going to finish around the same spot. I would say, and so it's kind of going to be if you can get to second, that's big, because I think that's a spot where you're going to get a playoff series where you're heavily favored against, whether it's Phoenix or Golden State, or maybe even Memphis or Portland or whatever. But like 3 through 6, it's just kind of going to be like, let's roll the Yahtzee dice and hope that whatever matchup we want ends up there. Because other than getting like the 3rd seed would be nice, because again, OKC is going to be on the other side. But yeah, they're 3 losses. They're 3 losses back of 2. I don't think it's a big deal. The tiebreaker with the Lakers tough, because then it's like you're 3.5 losses back. But again, if we're talking about tiebreakers in December, I would say I've lost the plot at that point. But let's move on to actually talking about some of the game. Anthony Edwards' play of recent has been interesting to me. Obviously, we talked about. I thought he was the biggest reason they lost the Suns game, and I wrote a piece a little that was just like, you can't, if they're gonna, like, we need to be past this with Ant specifically. But I don't think it's worth rehashing that, because he had his highest 6-game scoring stretch of his career. 6 straight 30-point games. For all the talk about like SGA is a 30-point scoring machine, his high span for 30-point games is 9. Like I do kind of like that. Obviously Shea is as consistent a player, but like even his 30 points don't happen like every single night like that. But yes, he has 2 40-point games in the 2 collapse games. And then last night, I don't know what to make of last night. I think I'm more willing to throw it in the same bucket of what is there to take away from the 30-20 Pelicans games. I mean, the last minute of these Pelicans games have been hilarious. Like that is where like, and Ant had a couple turnovers in that stretch, so like his 8 turnovers kind of get inflated from that. I don't know. It's just like, he has 11 points. He only takes 6 shots, 1 in the second half. Part of that is foul trouble related. But then again, he's a team high +10. And I'm not really willing to like, I mean, they win the game, but like rip him for like, I didn't try hard enough. I mean, the whole team should have done better defensively, obviously. But he's a team high +10 for whatever that means. And a lot of it was they were just doubling him like in both of these games before a pick came, before like just his only thing was to pass the ball. And it, at least last night, it just didn't end up getting back to him.
Yeah, and I don't remember someone said this on Twitter yesterday, but like the New Orleans Pelicans were like perfectly fine losing that game last night by 25 as long as Anthony Edwards didn't score 30 points. Like
right.
the doubles he was seeing last night, like one, he got thrown out, he got thrown out of rhythm by the foul trouble and all that stuff. Like that is also true. And I don't think he played like as well as he's been playing up to last night's game. But they were just throwing like insane doubles at him, like out by the logo. And like they won the game by like 15 points. So like if they're just going to be like, all right, we don't want Anthony Edwards to beat us, go play 4-on-3, like, and he's just like going to keep passing it and letting us play 4-on-3 and win the game by 15 points. Like, I don't really know how much critiquing there is to do there, because like you said, it's not like they were like trapping him on screens. It's not like the Wolves could have been doing different things to get him the ball in different spots. Like, they were literally just guarding him with two guys like 40 feet from the basket. So like, I don't know. And coming off this stretch of games where he's been really, really good, like the Phoenix and Sacramento collapse really, like, kind of unfortunately, because of how poorly he played in like the last minute of those games, unfortunately covered up for the fact that those were the moments when he kind of like got everything back on track, because for the first 47 minutes of that Suns game, he was fantastic. And he's been fantastic for most of these games. I think the first Pelicans game, as frustrating as it was kind of on a team-wide level, that they kind of played, they played down to their opponent. I don't think Anthony Edwards specifically did play down to his opponent in that game, especially in the second half where he literally didn't come out. And for me, the fact that he was able to remain as mentally sharp as he was in the second half of that game without getting a rest, because I think that is the Anthony Edwards story, right? Like if we're pointing at Anthony Edwards' glaring flaw, it's just like him not really being able to like stay focused for the entirety of a game, and the mental lapses that come via boredom or via exhaustion, whatever that may be. But in that first Pelicans game, he played the last 29 consecutive minutes without a rest, and was at like the sharpest I've seen him mentally all season, like making all the right decisions, pulling up at the right times. There was a play in overtime in that game that like popped to me, because I've seen Anthony Edwards do this a ton of times, where they were up by 3 and he got the ball in transition on like a 2-on-2, and he got to the top of the key in a situation that I have seen Anthony Edwards take a pull-up 3 100% of the time his entire career. But he kind of like recognized the situation where they were at, kind of like the snowball had started going down the hill, and just getting points was more valuable than like throwing the haymaker at that point. And he hit him with a head fake and went by him and got an easy layup. And then like everything snowballed from there. And that's just a play that I think an exhausted or bored Anthony Edwards typically hasn't made. In his career, he has gone for the haymaker there. And to his credit, he makes that shot sometimes too. And the game ends that way too. But all in all, like, I've just been really impressed with him over these last handful of games. It's been the scoring. The assist numbers are a little down, but I mean, I haven't looked at like the hockey assist numbers. I do think he's been passing out of the traps really well. I think this is his best season getting Rudy involved. As frustrating as Rudy has been, I have seen a lot more of Anthony Edwards just like splitting double teams with bounce passes to Rudy Gobert in the middle of the floor. And like, I can quibble with what Rudy does in those situations. Like, but that's what Anthony Edwards has to do if they're going to double him when Rudy sets a screen. So I think he has grown a lot this year. I don't think he has had the MVP level leap that I think everyone was kind of dreaming on this season. And I think like similar to the Timberwolves, like we talked about, the Timberwolves are the 7th best team by net rating. I think Anthony Edwards is like the 6th or 7th best player in the NBA right now. And that puts him like, that is a really, really good player. And I think we can hold him to a really, really high bar. But I don't think we need to get like super angry that it's like he's not in the MVP conversations. It's like he's not as good as Nikola Jokic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Luka Doncic right now. Like those guys are having much better seasons than Anthony Edwards, but that doesn't mean Anthony Edwards is having a horrible season. That doesn't mean that for the 6th year in a row he hasn't gotten better. Like I think he has leveled up his game this season, and I think the consistency has been better, and I think he is driving a lot of their winning over this like 4-game stretch right now.
Yeah, and I think like to last night specifically, I think if they needed him to score more, he would have. It was pretty much a carbon copy of the first game where he didn't have much scoring in the first 2.5 quarters, and when they needed him to get them into overtime and through overtime, they did it, and they went in this huge run at the start of the fourth quarter, and he was involved in that, like with passing and all that stuff. But like it's like once it got time to like, okay, let's see if Ant needs. Oh, they're up 11. We don't really need that anymore. So I think like why wasn't he scoring in the beginning of the game? It was the hard double teams. Why didn't he score much at the end of the game? They were winning. Like it's kind of similar to the San Antonio game where that game offensively he was carrying them through the first 3 quarters. And then they have this huge run at the beginning of the fourth quarter and has 3 fourth quarter points. It's like, that wasn't a bad quarter from him. It was just, he was involved in the action and the ball was moving because of him and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I like you. And then one quick aside, I'm usually hesitant to like call out, they played down to their opponents, because it's like a level of like psychological reading that I'm not really used to doing. But specifically about last night's game, Naz Reid said in the locker room, like, we played down to the opponent. So the minute I hear it from a player, then I'm certainly willing to like jump on it, you know. But usually it's just kind of like, did they do that or did they just play? But I don't know. That's an aside, which doesn't even apply because Naz said it in the locker room. All right, I want to talk about the 3 young guys, specifically Jaylen Clark, who in your ever famous Naz Reid game did not get a Naz Reid game because, I mean, just look at it. The game was too boring. Game was a farce. You can't calling the game a game, like there wasn't a game being played. It was I don't even know what it was, but he was awesome. The biggest thing for me is like his shot just looks confident. I almost don't care about like what the actual number is. He's shooting it like with relative confidence. I don't think like you think about Wolves' poor 3-point shooters in the past, like Trevion Graham or Josh Okogie, where it's just like, I have no confidence in this going. I am fairly confident that if you gave Jaylen Clark 1,000 wide open threes, he'd hit 35 to 40% of them in that general range. And that's huge because obviously we know his defense is going to play. And I would almost go, we know that like there probably isn't going to be much offensive game in his obviously there's areas he can improve, but he's not going to be even like Terrence Shannon doing stuff like that. Like he's going to be a 3-and-D player like that. I think that it's fair to say. And when he was drafted, I think the 3-point shot would have been a big question mark. And it just hasn't been an issue so far. And that if his 3-point shot's not going to be an issue, and if he can just do simple things, like obviously like if they close out to him, catch, drive, find the open person, which I've seen enough of that. Jaylen Clark's just been awesome, and I think I'm fairly high on him just being a rotational piece moving forward for the next few years, right?
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of what you said there. Like the 3-point shooting, I think the 3-point stroke, like it's a little funky. Like I don't think he's going to have a lot of like Nickeil Alexander Walker like relocation stuff. Like he's got to be open for me to want him to take it. Like he does not have off the dribble game, anything like that. But when he does get a wide open 3 in the corner and he has time to set his feet and fire it, I think that is a totally like reasonable, fair shot. I'm relatively confident it's going in. I don't think he is like going to be like a knockdown 45% 3-point shooter, but if he can shoot 38% on wide open catch and shoot threes, I think he's smart enough offensively, back to the basketball IQ talking point, but I think he makes a lot of the right decisions. And I think he does a really good job not playing outside of himself. Like I think if I had to pick like what I actually think what is the Jaylen Clark's like fatal offensive flaw, much less than the shooting, I think it's the fact that he can't dribble. And I think he does a really, really good job. Like Jaylen Clark is out there and he is going to take one, maybe two dribbles. And then he knows at that point, like, I need to get rid of the ball because
right.
this is not my game. Like he is not going to attack closeouts and make moves and take mid-range shots or try to finish around the rim. He is going to cut at the right times. He's going to attack closeouts and take one dribble and make like the correct next pass a lot of the time. And I trust him to make those decisions because I think he is a really smart basketball player. And then if he can do that, if he can be a passable offensive player on that end, the defense is just like eye test numbers. The defense is fantastic. He makes life look like hell for ball handlers. Like he does the thing where it's like teams are getting into their offense 2, 3, 4 seconds later than they want to because Jaylen Clark has been harassing the ball handler. And he puts in that little like split second of doubt when teams are making passes when he's on the court because Jaylen Clark is like lurking around trying to jump passing lanes like a cornerback and get a pick six. Like he is so good on the defensive side of the ball. And I think he is going to maximize his skills on the offensive end enough that he is just like, to your point, I think his floor is just good rotational player. I think there's a world where he's a starting caliber player on a really good team surrounded by like 4 other really, really good players. Like he's the, maybe the world doesn't allow, maybe the league doesn't allow for this type of player anymore, but like, gosh, what's the dude for the Russell Westbrook, KD Thunder, the shooting guard, Roberson, Andre Roberson.
Yeah. I was like, Kendrick Perkins?
No. Like the guy who's just out there and his job is to stand in the corner, make threes, and guard the hell out of ball handlers. And I think he can do that.
Yeah, I it is like an interesting discussion. Is the Roberson type able to be like a starting caliber player on a title team anymore? But certainly rotation player. You use. I think maybe like, could you see him closing a playoff game because the matchup dictates it? Obviously, maybe not like this year, but like in his maximum form. I absolutely see that. For Jaylen, the last point I wanted to discuss, and I don't really want to like relitigate like anything Rob Dillingham related, but Rob and Terrence kind of continue to not give you much. Weirdly with Rob, it's just like shooting. He like can't shoot weirdly. Everything else the defense has been fine. I think like the playmaking, making the right play, it's fine. But like, I guess, do they need to cut one of the guys from the rotation? I think Mike Conley missing a game would not be the worst thing in the world because you could kind of play a proper 9-man rotation instead of 10. Do you think they need to like take out either Shannon or Dillingham from the rotation and maybe give some of those minutes to maybe Clark a little bit, but mostly like whoever is left from those two?
I don't know. I find it so funny that we spent all last year complaining that none of the young guys were playing, and now all the young guys are playing, and they're not, and now we're playing too many of the young guys.
It's kind of like the bad teams discussion where they always blow it against good teams, and then they're 12-1 or whatever against bad teams, and now it's like, well, why can't they beat a good team? It's like, I don't know, they're 14-8. That's their record. They're a 52 win pace team so far.
So it's a little of like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Like I have not been like a super huge Rob Dillingham proponent over his Wolves tenure. For the most part, what I've seen from him, I've not been super impressed by. But I actually think over these last like couple of weeks, I think he has like shown some really good stuff. I think I tweeted this last night. Rob Dillingham, simply by nature of the fact that he is very, very small, has very, very short arms, very, very light. He is never going to be a good defender in the NBA. The idea with Rob Dillingham, though, was that he was going to be this dynamite offensive player. And the question was, could he get good enough at defense for it to be what is like his passable bar if he's a good enough offensive player is really, really low. I think he's cleared the passable bar on defense. I
Mhm.
think he is, for who Rob Dillingham is, perfectly fine on that end. I think he does a lot of like pesky, annoying little guy things on
Yep.
defense that make up for gaps. I think he is handsy under the basket. I think he is sneaky, kind of Jose Alvarado-y. He's good for like one, like, where did Rob Dillingham come from steal a game? And so with that being said, like, I think that's great that he has, to my eye, like cleared that bar. The problem is he just has not been a good offensive player to this point. Not just that he has not been a great offensive player, he just like has not been a good offensive
Yeah.
player. Outside of like the one little 2-game stretch against Houston and Boston last year, like he needs to be a really, really good offensive player to warrant being on the floor. And to your point, like it all just comes down to the shooting. Like the ball handling is great. And I think he is a smart player. I think he play makes well when he creates advantages. The problem is he's never creating advantages because they are not guarding him close enough for his ball handling to be a factor. Like defenders are just standing like 5-6 feet away from him while he has the ball because they are not afraid he's going to shoot it.
Yeah.
And for me, I just get a little nervous with a player that size that it's like, are they just a victim of the NBA 3-point line? Like, are NBA 3-pointers just like too far for Rob Dillingham to shoot? Because he was a good shooter in college, and he has not been a good shooter. He has not been a willing shooter in the NBA. And like, honestly, it looks like it takes a lot of effort for him to throw it far enough to get to the hoop.
And I think it's certainly fair to be worried, and I certainly am very concerned about like long term for him. I also think it's fair to like the stuff that he's specifically struggling with, I think can be figured out as he's 20 years old and gets more time. Like just get in the weight room and get more strength so the 3-point shot becomes more consistent. Like I do think that's possible. So I guess I'm certainly worried by all the things you just listed, and I'm also just like a little bit part of me is like he's also 20. What the heck was I doing at 20? I
Yeah.
wasn't doing jack squat. So
And so like if he can just like if tomorrow Rob Dillingham comes out and makes a couple 3-pointers and that just like if the snowball starts rolling down the hill and all of a sudden teams are worried about Rob's 3-point shooting, I think everything else just kind of falls into place because I don't have that many concerns about the other aspects of his offensive game. I just think he can't get to any of those things because nobody's worried that he's going to shoot.
for sure, absolutely. And then I guess with Shannon, I think him having that same game against Oklahoma City that he always has against Oklahoma City is inspiring. I guess it's just like every other game has not been there, and I think I'm more just willing to give him like the injury to start a season kind of threw off where he was at, and the lack of minutes since has kind of caused issues. I don't know. I'm not willing to like severely downgrade my like future thoughts for him. I think he can still be like a bench scorer for this team eventually, but like right now it's just kind of been a bit too inconsistent from him.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me with him, it's just like he's just not doing a really good job like picking his spots. Like he is either all gas, no brakes, or absolutely no gas, and he's really having a difficult time like regulating that. And then the other, like, if Rob Dillingham's fatal flaw is 3-point shooting, Terrence Shannon Jr. has got to figure out how to utilize his right hand, like when he is on that side of the floor, because he is just as good as he is in transition. If he is on the right side of the hoop, he's going to try to shoot it with his left hand, and he's getting blocked a lot doing that. Like teams are forcing him like to the middle when he is driving like from the left side, and then he doesn't really have anything to do because he is just like so left hand dominant at this point. And when he can create an advantage and get to his left hand, like good luck. But it's really, really ugly when he can't.
Yeah, it's also something that as you get into a playoff series gets even worse because teams can specifically like scout against it and be like, hey, if this guy's on the court, you got to make him go this way. Yeah, okay. I just, to close it out, I did want to spend like 5 or so minutes on kind of the Giannis situation because I think it's a big enough NBA thing where you gotta mention it. And with like Milwaukee, it's just time. It's time. Like I thought it was a good idea for them to not trade him in the offseason. And like the East is so bad. I just thought if you can be like even half decent, you're gonna have a shot. So you might as well basically like when is the next time the Bucks will be as good as they were 2 years ago? It's gonna be like a decade, unfortunately. So I was willing to like, but like at this point, I think it's clear like their team just isn't even all that close to good enough. It's time. Please keep him in the East. Like him going to San Antonio.
He's gonna get traded to the West. All the good players get traded to the West.
Him in San Antonio is abjectly terrifying. Him in Houston isn't that much less scary. Oklahoma City won the title, so they won't do it. If Indiana had won that game 7, I'd probably already be on the Thunder. It feels like. I kind of want to do a little postmortem because I think it relates to the Wolves. So they obviously win the title. The Drew Holiday thing is the perfect trade. Like you lose all those assets, but like Giannis is the type of player you go all in on and don't even give a crap about what comes next. And obviously like the Dame trade is where it all kind of crumbles. And I don't even think like it just didn't work out. I thought it was a half decent trade at the time. Obviously, Drew Holiday going to Boston was their worst case scenario. I'm not sure they really saw that coming. And then I think like the next thing was the coaching carousel they've been on since they let go of Bud. And that, if you think about Wolves Twitter, is why like where I would be hesitant if again the Wolves are not close to this, but if letting go of Chris Finch becomes at a later date like a prudent decision, my worry is like the Bucks just basically have not been able to find a solid coach since letting go of Bud. And there was reasons to let go of Bud, Mike Budenholzer. And I just kind of like, that'd be my worry is like with the Wolves. And you would hope you'd be able to have better hiring than Milwaukee has. But I do think it came to a point where I think Milwaukee needed to, instead of doubling down, tripling down, they needed to take like a 2-3 year break of like, okay, we're going to be good. We're not going to be title good, but we're going to like replenish our stuff. And then we're going to make another all-in trade 2-3 years down the road where now we're back into title contention. And I kind of think that's where the Wolves might be at right this second and why I'd be concerned about letting go of Finch, why I'd be concerned about making another all-in move, even like this offseason when your 2033 pick comes about, of making like an all-in move where it's like, this is it. If this doesn't work, we might be looking at what Milwaukee is looking at now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Giannis thing was, I think that this was kind of like always the natural end to it, and this is just kind of what happens with players of this level is like the Dame trade, like you said, the Dame trade objectively like did not work and started the snowball rolling down the hill that led to Giannis. He's probably never going to play for the Bucks again, right? He's out 4 weeks.
You could have a KG type deal, but maybe. Yes,
but so like, and that's like quote unquote where it started. But it's one of those things where it's like they did that trade because that is what Giannis wanted them to do.
Yeah, it's true.
And so like, okay, you don't make the Dame trade. Then maybe Giannis wants to get traded because of that. Like Giannis wasn't seeing eye to eye with Mike Budenholzer. So it's just kind of like, this is kind of what happens with these guys is you have to give them so much power in your organization to keep them appeased and happy. But these guys are really, really bad at making organizational decisions generally. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't kowtow to Giannis's demands, or like demands is like I don't want to paint him as like he was like holding them up at gunpoint or something to make these things. But like Giannis was making it very clear the things he wanted, and he got the things he wanted, and the things he wanted didn't work. And so, but if he hadn't gotten those things, we might have gotten to this point even sooner than we got to this point. Granted, I think generally speaking, winning, like you never get to this point. You very rarely do you get to this point if you're just good all the time, which I think is kind of what the Timberwolves are trying to do with Anthony Edwards. It's part of the reason why they traded all that stuff for Rudy Gobert, and it's part of the reason why they are why they don't want to liquidate guys for picks, and why they're really, really paying a lot of money to keep Naz Reid and stuff. Part of the reason is the idea of we take a minor step back for 3 years, replenish assets. You might just not have that much time, because these guys want to win, and these guys want to win all the time. And so the most effective way to retain a superstar player is to be really, really good every year. And that's really hard to do, but that's really all you can do.
Yeah, and that's probably a good point. They should have taken a gap year. That's probably revisionist, because I don't think they could. If they don't make that Dame trade or a similar type of deal, I think Giannis is on the Knicks right now. He's almost he's on the Knicks. Julius Randle would be a buck. That cat trade would have been for Giannis, probably. Obvious differences, but he already would have asked out, and he's been a good soldier, and I like you mentioned, this is just how it goes with these. That's the price you pay if you're Milwaukee. You get to have you won your title. If the Wolves could win only one title, I think we would all immediately take that. Especially given the men's sports in this town, the pro sports in this town since 91. But yeah, they're going to be in ruins. And if I'm a Bucks fan, that stinks. You'd probably that's
so I'll be
that's
honest,
how it goes though.
I know some Bucks fans. I talked to a good buddy of mine who is a Bucks fan about this. He, in the offseason, was it's time. He's yep. They should trade Giannis right now. He was I don't even care that the East is bad. He's we won our title. We're going to retire his number. We're going to build a statue for him. And I'm going to be a huge fan of him on his new team. And we're going to suck for a really long time. But that's kind of what this was all building towards. It was yep. We invested all this stuff to win while we had him. And now everyone just kind of recognizes that it's over. And Bucks fans, at least this one Bucks fan that I talked to, are not disappointed by that. They're it worked out. Everything was good. Sure, would it have been great if he had played his whole career for the Bucks? Yeah, but that almost never happens.
Yeah, it's true. And it's kind of that you'll look back fondly on these years. And I kind of, as we complain about a lackluster Pelicans performance, I'm confident in saying that it'll never be more fun. The Wolves will never be, in our lifetimes, as good for a consistent stretch as they are for the next 10 years, or the next 5 years, 10 years total, combining the last 5 years. This is almost certainly going to be the golden age of Timberwolves basketball, or at least for this 50-year pocket. This is what it's building towards, is can you figure out how to win with Ant, or can't you? And the Bucks found a way. Is Giannis a good enough player that they should have won a second title? Maybe. And that's the fun part of basketball. You win some or lose some or whatever, but yeah, it's just time. I don't know what I mean, yeah, they shouldn't have made the Dame trade in retrospect. I don't know what the big takeaway is. I guess I'm tired of another old man rant. I'm tired of keeping my eye on things. I hate those tweets that are keep an eye on this team for this player. Just listen to the local reporters. I promise you, if the Wolves are planning on trading Julius Randle, John Krasinski, Chris Hine, these guys they'll give you tidbits of information. You'll know. It'll maybe this is unfair to Clutch Points. That's not a reputable organization in this type of way. Neither, if Canis Hoopus was reporting this, I would tell, we're not newsbreakers. I associate, maybe unfairly, I associate Clutch Points with crazy graphics that have some out of context quote, right? I'm already tired of trade speculation. I'm already tired of trade talk. Is there Julius Randle trades that make sense? Sure. Is James Harden one of them? Absolutely not. The Wolves need to retain value. That's it's not, I don't know. maybe I feel like I'm old man yelling at clouds with the trade stuff because I know it's what people like and what people want. It's like, call me when something's real.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, this is the time of year where we start to speculate about trades, and I do think that there's a possibility that Julius Randle can be traded, but I don't think that they're like actively shopping him and being like, we need to get rid of this by any means necessary. I think they've got a pretty good asset that I think with his contract they would be perfectly comfortable keeping, and they would be perfectly comfortable trading if the right trade presented itself. And I think that is the ideal position to be in around trade season, is to have the maximum leverage. You need to be comfortable not making a move, so you can be negotiating against, we're just fine with the team as it is too. So like, all that's to say, like, I think they're probably like, we're going to get a lot more trade speculation slop, and every guy that is potentially available is going to be linked to the Timberwolves because they have the salary to make a lot of trades work. Like, just like mathematically speaking. So people are going to add contracts together and be like, oh, look at that, they can trade for Giannis. Oh, look at that, they can trade for Trae Young. Ooh, could they trade for LaMelo Ball, James Harden? Like, they're just going to be linked to all these guys by some reporter that's able to like add the numbers of contracts together and be like, look at that, they can make this trade.
And Julius plus Jaden fits for Giannis. You could do that straight up. That's not even close to getting it done. But like you said, if you plug it into the trade machine. Another old man yells at clouds. Stop using the ESPN trade machine. It doesn't know the rules. Use Spotrax. I don't know. I hope I'm not yelling at anyone individually that likes the ESPN trade machine is broken. I'm sorry. It just is.
The ESPN trade machine has been broken for a while. That was even
it doesn't know the apron rules.
But that one. The ESPN one was broken even before the apron rules.
Yeah. So, like, the Wolves have more flexibility than they did last year. They'll have a lot. Like, next offseason is, I think, where it kind of makes more sense to, if we're making a blow it up, not a blow it up, but like a sizable trade. That's probably where it makes the most sense. I also think, like, if the Wolves are going to make a trade, I think it's going to come closer to the deadline. Like, if they are going to play, if I don't know, if it becomes clear, like, they're a big step behind the Denvers, the Houstons, then, like, that's a big difference between, like, our preseason thoughts. So I think I don't know. It's a lot of speculation that I'm not really all that interested in until the closer to the deadline.
Yeah, it's too early. It's too early to be like super deep talking about trade stuff. Well, we got plenty of time. We got plenty of time to talk about that. Right now, we got to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh, and the Clippers, the multiple. I mean, like, the Kawhi thing is terrible. What's annoying is in 2 summers they're going to get everyone. They're going to have a ton of free agents and get whoever they want in free agency. Although free agency,
yeah, but free agents are no good players are ever free agents anymore.
Other than Julius Randle and Naz Reid, but even that's like an example of, I think the Wolves had them re-signed almost from the jump. So, anything to plug with your podcast? Anything? You had a Freudian slip there with the. Do you want to talk Twins? You had a Freudian slip there.
I do not want to talk about the Twins.
Just please don't. 2 seconds. Please don't trade Pablo or Byron. Please don't. Thank you. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't believe in them to do anything.
That is the correct answer. Thank you. You have answered correctly.
But yeah. Follow me on Twitter, BrandonBeck4, on Blue Sky, BrandonBeck4. Follow our podcast at No Pants Crunch on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky as well. We're in a little bit of an episode hiatus right now. Jordan is in Japan and Durf is expecting a baby, like, supposedly any second now. So we didn't have a new episode this week. I think Jordan's back like Friday next week, so we might be back on the recording train then. But yeah, listen to our pod, follow us on socials, and watch the Wolves.
Awesome. Well, good luck to the Durfs. That I know. I got a 2.5-year-old who won't go to bed at the proper time, so that's fun. Good luck. Good luck with that. No, it's all the cliches are true, good and bad. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Be back early next week with Leo. Go Wolves.